What if $10,000 isn't just a number, but a tipping point to real freedom? I didn't believe it either until I realized the biggest shift in my finances didn't come from a raise or a new job. It came the moment I hit $10,000 in savings. And that moment helped me go from negative $20,000 in debt to $200,000 in net worth without earning six figures. So in this video, I'm gonna show you why hitting that number brings real peace of mind, pushing control, and how to reach it faster with simple steps, even if saving feels impossible right now. But first, do you know the biggest reason why people make horrible financial decisions? It's definitely not because of the lack of knowledge. Have you ever watched a game show contestant completely blow an easy question with 15 seconds left on the clock?
Name a yellow fruit.
Orange.
You yell at the screen, "Come on, man, it's so obvious." But they blank out because they panic. It's not because they don't know the answer, it's the pressure. The time is ticking and they freeze. And it's not just a game show. Chess grandmasters make blunders under time pressure. Pro athletes choke in the final seconds. Stress, especially time-based stress, makes people make horrible choices. It narrows your thinking, crushes your options, and forces snap decisions that you would have never made with a clear mind. When time is short and the pressure is high, even experts could crack, and the mind narrows, and suddenly even simple decisions feel overwhelming. And now imagine that, but instead of a quiz show or a game, it's your real life. Rent is due in 2 days. Utility bills are already past due. You're not sure how you'll pay for groceries this week. You're working, but one paycheck mishap and suddenly you're spiraling out of control. This is the financial version of being in the final seconds of a game show every single month. And that's how millions of people live. In fact, nearly 1 in 4 Americans have zero emergency fund savings, and only 27% have enough to cover 6 months of expenses, according to bank rates. Most people aren't financially uneducated, they're financially cornered. This is where the $10,000 cushion changes everything. It's not about the number, it's about control. That $10,000 buys you nearly 5.8 months of median rent in the US. And that's not just money. That's a time cushion that gives you space to think. And that's a half a year of not having to panic if you lose your job, get sick, or just need to breathe. And one of my clients, Charlotte, didn't have that cushion. She was surviving by putting essential expenses like insurance, food, and utilities on her credit card. But here's a problem. Her credit card carries a 20% interest rate. That means while she's struggling to pay it off, the bank is quietly profiting. And like quicksand, the deeper she goes, the harder it is to get out. And when you're under that kind of pressure, everything feels like a crisis. Every small bump becomes a mountain of its own. But when you've got $10,000 in the bank, you get to make decisions with clarity and not panic. An emergency fund flips that dynamic. You're no longer reactive, you're proactive. You're no longer surviving, but you're choosing. And while the financial security is great and all, the real win is the mental freedom. No more lying awake at night calculating if you could actually make it to payday. No more stress-drenched decisions that you will later regret. You sleep better, you breathe easier, and you think clearer. Next, let me show you how hitting $10,000 isn't nearly as hard or painful as you would have been led to believe. In fact, once you see the math, you might actually feel excited to get started. Because saving $10,000 sounds great and all until you sit down, look at your income, and think, how in the world am I supposed to do that? For most people, it feels impossible. And when it feels impossible, it's easy to do nothing. You fall into the trap of, if I can't do it at all, why even get started? And I've been there myself. Back when I first started working, I had this exact mindset. I thought, if I'm not saving at least $500 a week, I'm wasting my time. It felt like pennies compared to the bigger picture. So I didn't end up saving at all. And I convinced myself that small contributions wouldn't make a difference, but one day I actually ran the numbers. Just $100 a week, that's $5,200 a year. Not only is that more than a month's income for many people, it's half that $10,000 goal. No fancy tricks, no lifestyle overhaul, just consistency. And once I saw that number, I realized how wrong my all or nothing thinking was. I would much rather have $5,200 at the end of 1 year than $0 if I didn't put anything away. And that changed everything for me. And I started thinking in terms of long-term stacking, not short-term sacrifices. I even tested it on my daily habits. Skipping a $5 drink or $10 lunch a few times a week, that adds up to around $3,000 just from food and drinks during workdays. And I realized this is how everyday people quietly build wealth, not with giant leaps, but with tiny wins stacked daily. And here's the surprising truth. Saving $10,000 in a year doesn't require a huge salary. It requires a clear plan, and if you break it down, $10,000 divided by 365 days is about $27.40 per day. That's it. That's one Uber ride, one impulse Amazon order, 2 meals at Chipotle, Well, one, if you get guac, and you don't have to cut your rent in half or buy a more affordable car. Sure, like that would be great if you can, but those savings can only come once a year or every few years. But what does show up every day? Your morning coffee, streaming services, happy hours, takeout dinners, unused gym memberships. By just tightening the screws on those smaller daily expenses and doing it intentionally, you could absolutely hit $10,000 in a year. And yes, it'll take some sacrifices. You might have to say no more often than you would like, but remember, this isn't forever. You're sacrificing to buy yourself a peace of mind. Next, let me show you why this one financial milestone could flip your entire trajectory, not just in your bank account, but in your career and your capacity to say no to things or people that drain you. There's a saying you probably heard: the rich gets richer while the poor gets poorer. And while it sounds very cliche, there is a truth to this. The one factor that the rich have is leverage. Not only financial leverage, but also psychological leverage. And that leverage here just means having more options. It's what gives you the upper hand when things get tough. And when you're broke, every decision is about survival. But when you have money, even just a $10,000 saved, you suddenly go from playing defense just to get by to playing offense. And there's a reason why people say the rich gets richer. It's not just about having more money, it's about having more freedom to choose, more room to breathe, and with it, having more power to take calculated risks. And here's the kicker: the most powerful person in a negotiation is the one who could walk away. Not this fake walk away that you do at a car dealership so that the salesman chases after you at the parking lot with free floor mats. I mean the real walk away, the kind where you don't blink, don't flinch, and you generally don't care if the deal falls through. Like, I didn't understand this until I experienced it firsthand. At one point, I had a manager who made work miserable. Like, not just annoying or inconvenient, but made it toxic. Like, every day felt like walking on eggshells. And I couldn't speak up because deep down, I was scared of even the possibility of losing my job. I needed that paycheck, rent was due, bills were piling up, and I had no fallback. But when I finally built up a $10,000 cushion, everything changed. I didn't come into work reckless or rebellious or anything, but I felt like I could finally speak my mind. To say, hey, I think there's a better way to do this, without the irrational fear that I was getting fired. And I could ask better questions, challenge broken processes, and advocate for change, not out of frustration, but from a place of confidence. I wasn't just surviving anymore, I was finally thinking clearly and operating like a professional instead of a prisoner. And that's the psychological shift that no one talks about. Money doesn't just buy you things, it buys you options. You don't have to tolerate nonsense just because you're financially trapped. It gives you back your voice. Saving your first $10,000 doesn't just move numbers in your bank account, it rewires how you think, speak, and act. And you shift from survival mode to opportunity mode. And you start making decisions based on what's right for you, not what you're afraid of losing. And you can negotiate a better pay without desperation in your voice. You could leave toxic jobs, bad clients, or draining relationships without the financial panic. And you could pursue risks that once felt irresponsible, like starting a business, taking a sabbatical, investing in a course, or switching careers. You gain mental clarity because you're not constantly juggling which bills you need to delay this month. And perhaps most importantly, you start believing in your own value because you no longer making choices under pressure, you're making them with purpose. And this is why the first $10,000 is transformational, not because of what it could buy, but because of who you become when you're not afraid anymore. But even after hitting that $10,000 milestone, there's still one feeling that still creeps in for a lot of people. Like, it's not enough. You're behind and everyone else is just miles ahead of you. So make sure you watch this video next where I'll talk about my honest advice to anyone who feels financially behind.